The corner of 7th Boulevard and the Market District had become sacred ground to Lyra. For 500 days, she had stood there, her crystalline skin catching the light of Zerath Prime's twin suns, watching the crowds flow past like water around a stone. The other Zerathi had long since stopped asking why. "She's broken," they whispered in their melodic language. The words carried on bioluminescent pulses that rippled across their bodies. The human did something to her mind. Lyra heard them all. She simply didn't care. She remembered the day with perfect clarity, a gift and curse of her species' eidetic memory. Captain Marcus Webb had stumbled into the market square, his environment suit torn, emergency beacon flashing weakly on his wrist. The first human most Zerathi had ever seen, crashed and alone, separated from his ship during a solar storm. The crowd had recoiled from him. Humans were known throughout the galaxy. Warriors, explorers, the species that refused to stop pushing forward even when the universe pushed back. But they were also strange, short-lived, and reckless. Most civilized species kept their distance. Lyra had been different. She'd approached him as he'd collapsed against the very corner where she now stood. His blood, red, not the blue of her own, had seeped through his suit. She'd called for help, used her family's medical kit, stayed with him while the xenophobic authorities debated whether to aid an outsider. For 3 days, Marcus had recovered in the public shelter. Lyra had visited each day, bringing him water that wouldn't poison his strange chemistry, food synthesized to match his biological needs. They'd talked about his ship, about Earth, about the Zerathi philosophy of stillness and patience. "Your people wait for perfection," Marcus had said, his voice rough but kind. "My people? We chase it knowing we'll never catch it. That's what makes us human." On the 3rd day, his crew had found him. The frontier spirit had landed just outside the city and Marcus had prepared to leave. Lyra had walked with him to this corner, where the market district met the road to the spaceport. "I'll come back," he'd promised, his brown eyes meeting her opalescent ones. "Humans don't forget debts. And this," he'd gestured between them, "this is more than debt. You showed kindness when your world showed fear. I'll return, Lyra. Wait for me here at this corner. I promise." The Zerathi didn't understand promises the way humans did. To her people, words were decorative, intentions fluid, plans subject to the perfection of stillness. But something in Marcus's voice had resonated in Lyra's chest like a struck bell. So she'd waited. Day 50. Her mother had begged her to come home to abandon this foolishness. "Humans live such short lives," she'd pleaded. 70, maybe 90 cycles. They forget, they move on. This is not our way. Day 100. The local merchants had started leaving offerings at her feet, food, water, shade cloth, for the harshest sun. They'd stopped mocking and started wondering, what kind of promise could make someone wait like this? Day 200. A galactic news network crew had arrived, wanting to film the loyal alien girl. Lyra had refused their cameras, but word spread. Across the galaxy, beings heard about the Zerathi who believed in a human's promise. Day 300. A merchant ship captain, a gruff Tyrellian, had stopped to speak with her. "I know humans," he'd growled. "Crazy bastards. But if that human said he'd come back, he's either dead or he's trying. They're too stubborn to break promises." Day 400. Lyra's legs had adapted to standing, her body entering a meditative state her people called the long patience. She slept standing, ate when offerings came, and never left the corner. Her family had stopped trying to bring her home. Instead, they'd built her a small shelter overhead, just enough to block the worst of the seasonal rains. Day 500. The morning arrived like any other. Twin suns rose, the market came alive with colors and sounds, and Lyra stood watching the road from the spaceport. Then she saw him. At first, she thought her mind had finally cracked, conjuring phantoms from hope and memory. But the figure walking down the road was solid, real, limping slightly but moving with purpose. The same battered jacket now covered in patches from a dozen worlds. The same determined stride. Marcus Webb had returned. He looked older. 500 days was nearly 2 Earth years, and humans aged so visibly, so quickly. But his eyes were the same, and when he saw her standing at their corner, his face broke into a smile that made every single day of waiting worthwhile. "I'm sorry I'm late," he said when he reached her, slightly out of breath. "The frontier spirit was destroyed 6 months out. I've been working passage on cargo haulers, mining ships, anything that would get me back here. I promised I'd return." Lyra's bioluminescence flared brilliant blue. joy in the Zarathi language of light. You came back. After 500 days, you came back. Marcus reached out and she took his hand. Human skin was warm, so different from her cool crystalline surface, but it felt right. Of course I did, he said simply. Humans keep their promises. And besides, he smiled, pulling a small data chip from his pocket. I couldn't let you wait forever. I've got approval to establish Earth's first embassy on Zerath Prime. I figured I'd need a cultural liaison, someone who understands both patience and stubbornness, someone who'd be crazy enough to wait 500 days on a promise, interested in the job. Around them, the market had gone silent. Zarathi watched in awe, their bioluminescence pulsing with wonder. A human had returned. A promise had been kept. Lyra's laughter rang out like crystal chimes. I accept. Though I should warn you, now that I know humans actually keep their promises, I might ask you to make a few more. Marcus laughed, the sound warm and alive. We're good at making promises, and even better at keeping them. Come on, let's get you away from this corner. You've been standing here long enough. As they walked together into the market, Lyra realized something profound. The galaxy saw humans as reckless, short-lived, chaotic. But they were also something else, something her long-lived, patient people had forgotten. Humans were beings who believed that promises mattered more than time, that loyalty could outlast logic, and that some things like honor, like friendship, like love, were worth crossing the stars to preserve. 500 days, and every single one had been worth the wait.